guys, it's Jaylyn and I'm here today with another writing video. It's actually not really a writing video. Today I wanted to do a video that I've been meaning to do for a while because I do get quite a lot of questions on this, and it's how to read more. I read usually more than 70 books a year, and I know especially for writers it can be hard to read a lot because it's hard to balance reading and writing and know how to fit both of those things into your life. Back in like 2015 or 2016, I felt like I was not reading as much, like I've always read a lot my whole life. I was a huge bookworm as a kid, and around 2015 I was struggling to get through books, and I probably read like 20 books that year, which I know 20 books might seem like a lot for a lot of people. For me, it was not very much. This is kind of the stuff that I did to help me get back into reading and how I started reading more again. I just want to say as a quick disclaimer, there's no amount that you need to read. Everyone is obviously different, and a lot of it comes down to just figuring out what works for you. A lot of people find that audiobooks really help them, and audiobooks just don't work for me because I can't stay focused on them. I find I can't really listen to podcasts or audiobooks because my mind starts to wander and I end up missing a lot. So for me, audiobooks, they just don't work for me, but they're a great option for a lot of people. You kind of just have to find what works for you because we're all different and we all have different schedules and we all focus the best under different situations. But I hope that what I have to say, at least something in it, is helpful if you're trying to read more. So my first tip is to work on building back up your attention span. Look, I get it. My attention span was so short, and maybe it still is pretty short, I don't know. But a few years ago, when I was kind of struggling to read a lot, I found that my attention span for reading was just nowhere. It was nothing. Like, I just couldn't stay focused on reading for long periods of time. And so I found that I had to just slowly train my attention span back up again and slowly work to build back up my attention span because it was non-existent. You can blame the internet for that maybe. But yeah, so the ways that I found worked to build back up my attention span, first was to read with timers. So you can start with really low timers, like 5-minute timers, like set a 5-minute timer and don't stop reading until the 5 minutes is up, or maybe like 15 minutes is a good one. Just try to read for 15 minutes and don't stop. It's like a reading sprint, essentially. Once you get to the point where you're like, oh, 15 minutes easy, I can easily focus on reading for 15 minutes, then you can go to 25, then you can go to 35. I used to do this when I was getting through books that I found were dense or that I wasn't really enjoying, and I was struggling to get through them. I would set 30-minute timers, and I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna read for 30 minutes today, and I would be so amazed at how much I could read in 30 minutes if I was just focusing for 30 minutes. My second tip for building up your attention span is to read while waiting for things. I think this is really helpful because there's like a natural end point to this task. One thing that I do a lot of the time is if I'm roasting veggies for dinner, I'll read while my veggies are cooking. That really helps me focus because I'm reading while waiting for something. I don't know what it is about reading while waiting for things, but it really, really helps. My second tip is probably the most obvious one. It's to eliminate distractions. And the biggest one is going to be your phone. Put your phone away. The amount of times that I would be reading with my phone next to me, and I would just, without even meaning to, find myself stopping to check my phone. It's just a habit that we're so used to constantly checking our phones. If your phone is in reach while you're trying to read, you're going to get distracted and you're going to stop to check your phone. Put it away. Put it in a drawer, set your timer for like 35 minutes and then put it in a drawer across the room, and then when the timer goes off, you can get up to go get your phone. Reading with your phone and your laptop out of reach will be the biggest factor in eliminating distractions because those are probably the biggest distractions, things that you're going to find yourself reaching to without even noticing that you're doing it. I live with my phone on silent. I never have my ringer on because I don't want to be contacted ever. I simply do not want people to interact with me. So I always have my phone on silent. But if you're not like completely averse to people engaging with you like I am, then put your phone on silent. If you can hear notifications going off on your phone while you're trying to read, every single time a notification goes off, which is probably a lot, you're gonna stop and you're gonna get distracted. You can also go somewhere to read, like a park. I find, and I complain about this in all my videos, I live somewhere really loud. I don't know what it is, but every single person that I neighbor has a different, very loud thing that they do. It is like a special moment when I can actually have quiet at my house. Never happens. It can be really hard if you're trying to focus on reading if there's people talking and a lawnmower going off and someone is sawing something and someone else is playing music. I can't focus on reading like that. I'm the kind of person, I get really distracted by noise. And so if you can go somewhere quiet, like a park, like take your book, go to a nice quiet park. It'll probably be beautiful. Sit there for the afternoon. It'll probably be very relaxing. Great way to eliminate distractions and kind of just like have a nice day to yourself. I would also highly recommend, if you're someone like me and you're easily distracted by noise, a white noise app is game changing. So if I want to read, but let's say people are talking or there's any noise that's going to distract me, because even if it's kind of faint, I'll find it hard to focus. I pop in headphones and I have like a rain noise app on my phone and I just play that to drown out the noise. I find that like a rain noise app is super helpful if I'm struggling to focus. Rain is my favorite because rain is just like a very soothing sound. It fades into the background, but it's not distracting because it's so soft and natural. Like if it's actually raining outside, like that's my favorite time to read. My next tip is so obvious, but I think it's worth saying. Read stuff you're really excited to read. So back in like 2015 or 2016, when I was not reading as much and I was struggling to read, I eventually realized why I was struggling to read. And it's because I was reading a genre and an age category that I wasn't really into anymore. Nothing against YA. If you love YA, read YA. Read whatever you're into. But I'd been reading YA for years, and it's what I kept reaching for because it's what I was used to reaching for, right? Like, I'd started reading YA when I was like 12, 13, and so those are the only books I knew about, and so I just naturally went to YA, and I hit a point around 18 where it kind of just wasn't appealing to me anymore, and I wasn't really enjoying most of what I read in the YA category. And so it was really hard to motivate myself to read when I wasn't excited about what I was reading. If you've been reading the same type of books for ages and you just feel like you're not enjoying it, branch out, read something else. I refound my love for reading when I changed the genre and category that I was reading. But not just genre and category, like read specific books that you feel super excited to read and read them when you're excited to read them. You don't have to read a book because it's popular and everyone's talking about it, or people keep recommending it to you. If you feel like you're only reading something because you have to, because it's popular or it's been recommended or everyone else is reading it, it's gonna feel like a chore. Find books that you're really excited by and you are excited to read, and then go read them right away. So I have a habit of buying too many books, as you can probably tell from the background. A couple years ago, I bought way too many books, and I had so many unread books on my shelf. And I just wasn't feeling that motivated to read because I wasn't actively excited to read the books that I had on my shelf, because I was buying books and then not really reading them for months. And so then I got through my whole TBR and I kind of started fresh and started always reading the stuff that I was most excited to read. I noticed immediately that I was enjoying what I was reading so much more. I was actively excited about the stuff that I was reading. And so that is like the most important thing, is to just read the stuff that you're excited to read, no matter what it is. And along with that, if it helps, like, you have permission to read books that are short or easy. I don't think there's any such thing as guilty pleasure books in reading. If you're reading it and you're enjoying it, that's amazing. It doesn't matter what genre it is or if it's not like literature. Like, you don't have to be reading War and Peace to be like a real reader. Like, read whatever you like. Reading stuff that you're really excited to read and that you find easy to consume is the most important thing. I find when I'm in a reading slump, I like to reach for poetry. And I know that sounds so pretentious. I'm like, yeah, personally, my easy read is poetry. But seriously, poetry books are often around 70 pages. They're super short. You can read them in one sitting, and there's so much white space on the page that they don't feel dense. So for me, poetry is my easy read. I get the satisfaction of reading a whole book cover to cover in less than an hour. If I've just read something longer or denser, like I just finished reading The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, and I don't normally read high fantasy, and that book is like 500 pages. And so for me, it felt like a dense one to get through because it's not usually the genre that appeals to me. And obviously fantasy tends to be a denser genre. So right after I finished it, I was kind of feeling tired and I didn't feel like diving into, another novel. And so I just went and read a book of poetry, and it kind of like picked back up my reading momentum because I was able to just get through a whole book in literally 40 minutes. Next up, I would recommend getting a buddy. If you're struggling to get through books, sometimes there's no motivation like reading with someone else. You can do buddy reads with a friend so you both read the same book at the same time, and then maybe pick a day where you're gonna go get coffee and talk about it, or just how many pages you're gonna read every week so you can talk about it and read it at the same pace. That'll be really motivating. Or you can join a book club. That will motivate you because there will be deadlines. You'll have to read the book by the time the book club meets. It can be really motivational to read with other people, plus then you get to talk about the books afterwards. That can be really fun and really motivating. I would also recommend find a way to track your reading if that kind of stuff motivates you. I find tracking my reading very motivational because I like being able to see like how much I've read and feeling like very accomplished myself. Next up is to set goals. So here's fact. You will enjoy books more if you read them faster. Doesn't mean you have to read it in like 3 days, but if you're taking 6 months to read a book, you're probably gonna enjoy the book less. Like if you're reading a couple pages and taking weeks off and then reading a couple pages and then taking weeks off or months off from the book, you're not going to get invested in the story. You're not going to feel engaged in the story. You'll probably find that you enjoy books more if you read them in a more compressed time. Some people just are naturally slower readers and will take longer to read books, and that's okay. But I mean, if you're taking like weeks off in between reading sessions, you're not going to enjoy the book. You're never going to feel immersed. You're going to forget what's going on. And so you're not going to want to come back, right? Like if you read 50 pages one day and then you don't come back to the book for 2 months, when you do come back, you're not going to remember what's going on, you're not going to feel immersed, you're not going to feel engaged, and therefore you're not going to want to come back to keep reading it. Aiming to read books in the shorter time frame will make you enjoy them more, and one thing that can really help is to set goals. So the way that I set goals, when I start a book, I just kind of read it the first day of reading, and I see how much I'm able to read on that day, because different books read at different speeds. You know, there are some books that I can read 150 pages straight through and then another book where I might read 40 and be like, I can't do this anymore. So on the first day, I like to just see how much I can realistically read in a day, and then based on that, plan out like how long I want it to take. So if the book is longer or reads slower, I might be like, okay, so based on how much I read on day 1, it'll take me about 8 days of reading to read this, so my goal is to be done by this day. If the book reads really fast, I might want to be done in 3 days. So yeah, I would really recommend, if you want to read more and get back into reading, to really avoid reading books extremely intermittently and avoid picking up a book and putting it aside for months, because you're just not ever going to get immersed in the story and you probably won't enjoy it. You can also set goals in other ways. A little while ago, a couple months ago, I realized that I wasn't reading as much as I have the past couple years. So I just set the goal to try and read every day. I don't read every day. Some days I miss reading, but just trying to read every day, I started reading so much more. You know, you could set the goal to read 5 days of the week, 3 days of the week, but just find some way to set a goal. If reading isn't something that you're used to prioritizing, you're just never going to reach for it. There's always going to be TikToks to watch, a new show that just dropped on Netflix, a Twitter feed to scroll through. And so if you're not actively making an effort to try to read, you're not going to. You won't magically start reading more if you don't make an effort to read more. That's the tough love. Ultimately, the way to read more is you just have to prioritize reading over other things. I prioritize reading over watching TV. I never feel like I'm straining to read that much. Reading is just a very naturally integrated part of my routine. I'm just used to reading almost every day. And so I've built up the attention span for it. I know how to fit it into my day. So it feels very easy. And that's because I prioritized it over other things. You do have to work to build a habit, but eventually it can start to stick. And if it's something you really care about, you just have to make the effort to reach for a book rather than reaching for your phone or reaching for your laptop. I hope that these tips were helpful if you've been trying to read more or get back into reading. This is all stuff that's really helped me read more. The reason I want to read so much is because there are so many books I want to read. If I don't put effort into it, like, there are just so many good books in the world that are gonna go left unread that, I don't know, there's so little time that we have on this mortal plane, so many books that I want to read in that time. I know this wasn't a writing video, but I do hope it was helpful because this is all stuff that's really helped me read more over the past few years. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can always send me an ask on Tumblr, and I'll see you in another video.